Hi everybody, welcome to Living Traditions Homestead. I am so excited to be in the kitchen with you today, and we are going to be preserving tomatoes in the form of salsa, which I'm actually gonna turn into picante sauce. So salsa into picante, we're gonna can that today. We're actually going to be canning two different recipes out of my favorite canning book. It is called the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving, 400 Delicious and Creative Recipes for Today. Now, just recently, Kevin and I did a really big harvest in the greenhouse, and about a week prior to that, I also did a huge harvest of tomatoes. All of the tomatoes have gone into the refrigerator because I was unable to do any preserving during the time in between. I actually was on a road trip with my daughter Samantha. We went to visit my parents. So all of those tomatoes had to go into the refrigerator, and today we're gonna get started on preserving them in the form of salsa turned into picante sauce. This video that I'm recording for you all, I'm actually going to be preserving salsa over the course of a couple days for me. Just like you guys, things in our lives come up and I don't have loads and loads of time blocked off to do nothing but canning. And I wanted to say that to you because even if you're busy and you don't have, 8-hour stretch of time to do canning, there are ways for you to do your canning just in different steps. And I'll kind of share with you how I'm going to be doing this over the course of the next couple of days and how you can get started but not have to do everything that day. I just want to encourage all of you that even if you have busy schedules, you can still grow food, preserve it for your family. Okay, so we're gonna get started. On both of the recipes that we're gonna be making in this video, we need to start with tomatoes that have been cored and peeled. So to core a tomato, you need to take out basically the stem part that's on the top of the tomato. And to peel them means we need to remove all of the skins. And both of them are very easy, just a little time consuming, but definitely worth it. The first step in this process for me is going to be to core all of these tomatoes. You core them and then we'll skin them. I want to share with you a device that makes coring tomatoes very, very easy. It's a little spoon with teeth around the edges that helps you really grab the core of the tomato. You can twist it around. It kind of looks like a melon baller with teeth on it. And I know that there's a special name for it, but I don't know what it is. It just really takes that core out easily, leaves all of the tomato left in there, and you can move on to the next one. It is very easy. I got these on Amazon. They're really very inexpensive. I do have them in my Amazon shop if you want to take a look at them. I'm going to grab a knife, because any of these cracked edges here, I'm gonna cut those out. We don't wanna have those in our salsa. Now all of the cores and the bits that I'm cutting out here, all of the tomato skins are gonna go to our pigs, so nothing will be wasted. But I also want you to know that if you want to keep the tomato skins, probably not the cores, but the tomato skins, you can freeze dry or dehydrate them and powder them, and add them into your tomato sauces as a thickener. Only 3 tomatoes left before we can get started with the skinning process. Now I wanted to let you know that if you do a lot of gardening, and you can get your hands on some of the boxes that they use at the produce auctions or the grocery store, those nice boxes like this. These are fantastic harvesting boxes because they're super sturdy, and it's like the perfect height for one level of tomatoes or peppers or something like that. In the past, people have seen these in our videos and they've assumed that we didn't grow our produce. We actually got it at a produce auction or the grocery store or something. But rest assured, we do grow all of these tomatoes. In fact, you can see a lot of our videos that show our tomatoes in our greenhouse and in our gardens and us harvesting them. But if you grow a lot of your own food and you can get your hands on some of these produce boxes, they are fantastic for harvesting. Okay, we're just finishing this up really quickly. and we can start the tomato skinning process. Okay, so I'm all set here. I have all these stations set up for me so that I can go ahead and skin these tomatoes. I have a giant bowl of tomatoes here that we're going to skin. Remember, I cored them and took off any icky spots. Now, some people also put an X, take their knife and slit an X on the bottom of their tomatoes. They feel like they skin easier doing it that way. If you want to do that, you go ahead and do that. I haven't really found that it makes much difference, and it saves me a step not to have to do that. So I'm gonna bring these all the way back down here. Now in this pot on top of the stove, I have boiling water. We're gonna plunge some of these tomatoes into the boiling water, let them cook in there until we see the skin starting to peel away from the tomato. Then we will take them out and put them into this pot, which has cold water in it. You can use ice water, but you guys, I skinned so many tomatoes, I would go through so much ice. I just use cold water. And then when they are cool enough to handle with my hands, I bring them over here, take the skins off, put them in this bowl for the pigs, and then I put the skinned tomato in here. So that is the process that we will be going through to skin these tomatoes. Let's get started. I'm going to take the top off of here. Now I use a spoon to put the tomatoes in the boiling water because I have burned myself way too many times just dropping them into the boiling water. And I don't really count how many I put in here. I just put as many as like I feel like it, I guess. I make sure that I don't overflow the water. Now we're just gonna stir these up, let them boil in here until the skins start peeling off of the tomatoes. Some of these tomatoes, the skins are peeling off, so it's time to find those and get them into our cold water. We'll keep these tomatoes in the cold water until they're cool enough for me to handle, and some of them already are. Just take them over here, and I'm just gonna slide this tomato skin right off of here. Comes off really easily at this point. And then that tomato is ready to be used. Okay, all of our tomatoes are ready, and I've brought out the rest of the veggies that we're going to need that we harvested from the greenhouse. Also brought out some onions that we did get from the store. Now we're gonna be doing a recipe from the book that I talked with you guys about. The name of the salsa that we will be doing and then turning into picante sauce is called Fresh Vegetable Salsa. So if you have this book, that's the one that I am gonna be working on. Okay, our first steps to assembling this salsa, we need to chop up all of these tomatoes. And I'm just going to do a rough chop with a knife and a cutting board. This recipe I'm going to be doubling, and so I will be using 14 cups of diced tomatoes. After the tomatoes, I will be bringing out my Vidalia Chop Wizard, which I absolutely love. It makes dicing up vegetables so fast. The onions we will need, because we're doubling it, we will need 4 cups of diced onion. We'll be adding 2 cups of diced bell peppers. Now, not all of the peppers, the sweet peppers that I have are bell peppers. We do have some beautiful sweet lipstick peppers as well as some Ajvarsky peppers. Then come the spicy peppers. This recipe calls for 8 jalapenos, but we're gonna be doubling it. So we will be putting in 16 jalapenos. I'm not taking out the seeds. We like the spice. Those will just go in there. Garlic, I'm going to be mincing up some cloves of garlic. I will be mincing up the equivalent of 6 cloves of garlic, but I have these huge elephant heads of garlic, and so I'm just kind of wing it on how much I think 6 cloves of garlic is. And then one kind of different thing about this recipe that I absolutely love is it calls for tomato paste. And because we are doubling this recipe, we're going to be putting in 2 5.5 ounce cans of tomato paste. I love this tomato paste. It's organic. I get it in bulk in big packs from Azure Standard. To increase the acidity and make sure this is a safe recipe to be canning, we're going to be adding white vinegar. Again, I'm doubling this recipe, so I'll be adding 1.5 cups of white vinegar. It also calls for 1/2 cup of loosely packed, finely chopped cilantro. I have some cilantro that we grew in our garden in the spring and I preserved it in the freezer, so I will be adding that. And then I will also be adding 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. Now the cumin also I buy in bulk from Azure Standard. All of the ingredients are in my big pot here. Now you may have noticed in the middle of all of that, my shirt changed. It is a different day. Like I said, you know, I had some things to do and just couldn't get all of this done at one time, which is something that is just real life, okay? So what I did was I got all of the vegetables chopped and in this pot, and I covered it and put it in the refrigerator overnight. And then now that I am able to work on all this stuff again, I added the remainder of the ingredients. So I am going to mix this up. I'm going to set it on the stove top. And because I am making 2 different types of salsa today, I am going to make them all up in their respective pots first. And then I will bring them both to a boil and cook them both at the same time on the stove top. So I can kind of tandem can them rather than getting everything dirty, cleaning up, canning the first kind, then doing everything all over again for the second kind of salsa. That's just what I'm going to be doing today. It just is a lot less dishes. I think that in the end it will save me time. And then also you guys only need to see me go through the canning process 1 time rather than 2. Look at how beautiful that is. Oh my goodness. Okay, like I said, I am just going to cover this. I'm actually going to cover it with a towel, set it on the stove top. I skinned enough tomatoes to do both of these salsas without having to go through that whole process all over again. So that will save me some time also. So I'm going to grab those tomatoes. The extra tomatoes have also been in the refrigerator overnight covered. So I'm going to bring those out and we're going to whip up the second type of salsa we're going to be making today, which is jalapeno salsa. This recipe has the same amount of tomatoes as it does jalapeno peppers. So this is a much spicier recipe. Kevin loves spicy, hot salsas. So does our new son-in-law, Gavin. So I'm gonna be making that jalapeno salsa recipe with those 2 special men in mind. Okay, for this jalapeno salsa, which we will eventually turn into picante sauce, we're gonna start off again by cutting up some tomatoes. I'm just gonna rough chop them up with a knife rather than using my chopper. Now, I am gonna be doubling this recipe as well. This recipe calls for 6 cups. Now, this is doubled, this is all doubled. 6 cups of cored and peeled tomatoes. And then we are going to chop up 6 cups, yes, 6 cups of jalapenos. I am not going to seed these. We want all of the spice that these homegrown jalapenos have packed in them for these guys who like spicy salsa and picante sauce. We will be adding 2 cups of chopped onions, then adding 2 cups of cider vinegar. It calls for 6 cloves of garlic. Now again, I have elephant garlic, so I'm gonna be winging it and doing what I feel is the equivalent of 12 cloves of garlic, finely chopped. We'll add 4 tablespoons of chopped cilantro, 4 teaspoons of dried oregano. This is actually homegrown oregano from here at the homestead. 3 teaspoons of salt, and 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. Well, that came together quickly. Let me stir this around. There are a lot of jalapenos in there. This is going to be spicy. Look at all those jalapenos. Actually, it's kind of spicy even to breathe in at the moment. Okay, now that both of our salsas, or picante sauces, are all measured out and mixed up, I am gonna put these on the stovetop, get them going. They both need to come to a boil, and then each of them has a different amount of time that they need to cook and allow the vegetables to soften and the liquid to kind of thicken up a little bit. This jalapeno salsa, the recipe says to let it boil and cook down for 10 minutes. The other recipe that we did earlier, it says 30 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these on the stove, get them cooking. After both of the salsas are heated up on the stovetop and have thickened up a little bit, that's when I'm going to go ahead and blend them into picante sauce. In an effort to save dishes, all the dirty dishes, I'm going to use an immersion blender, but if you are wanting to try this at home, you could use a food processor, a blender, anything that will blend it up easily for you. Once all of those things are accomplished, we'll get started canning. Well, I think this jalapeno salsa is ready to be blended up. It looks fantastic. The color is amazing, and I think the consistency is just about right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my, my stick blender or emulsion blender. So that is pretty thin, but you know, if you think about it, picante sauce really is quite thin. And over the last year or so, Kevin has let me know that the consistency of like the salsa or picante sauce that you get at Mexican restaurants is really what he is favoring these days. And so that's why I am turning these salsas into picante sauce, because that's what he wants and I want to make him happy. So this, I think, is a perfect consistency. I'm going to just put this aside until everything else is ready. Before I go ahead and can all of this, I will heat it up again to boiling before we put the picante sauce in the jars. So next up, I need to make sure this one over here is done, and we'll go ahead and blend that one up as well. Okay, we're all set to get started canning. We're gonna start with the first recipe we made together. It's here on the stove. I'm gonna turn it off, it's hot. That has the most volume to be canned, and I just wanna start with that. Both of these recipes have different processing times. We're gonna start with one that requires 20 minutes processing. The second one has 15 minutes processing. So we also have here on the counter hot jars. I'm going to be using 8-ounce or half-pint size jars today. I have canning rings, clean, new canning lids, our funnel, jar lifter, ladle, our headspace measuring tool, a clean damp rag, and a chopstick. I'm going to bring our hot picante or salsa over and give it a stir. Now I just want to let you know, if you're new to canning, I encourage you to watch one of my teaching videos on how to water bath can. It is very detailed, step by step, because I'll probably move through a lot of this quickly without detailed explanation as to why I'm doing what. But we are going to go through each of the steps just a little bit more quickly. So make sure you check out my kind of introductory or tutorial on how to water bath can. It's a great resource for people who are just beginning canning. Okay, so let's get started here. My jar and my canning funnel. Now we are going to be ladling this into our jar until it's a 1/2 inch from the top of the jar, a 1/2 inch headspace. I'm going to remove the air bubbles with this chopstick. I'm going to check the headspace amount with this tool that I have here. There's just a tiny bit too much in there, so I'm just going to take that out with a spoon. Try that again. That is perfect. So now we're going to wipe off the rim with a clean damp towel, put on a clean lid, center it on there, put on a ring, and then we can take this right over into our canner. Okay, let's do this again, a little bit closer for you guys. Put in our salsa. A 1/2 inch from the top. Swirl it around to take any bubbles out. Measure it to make sure it's the correct headspace. It is. Wipe off the rim. A new clean lid, canning ring. We are going to tighten that to finger tight, not too tight, finger tight. We'll put this into our canner. Okay, the first round of that picante sauce, salsa, is in the canner, and 16 1/2 pints or 8-ounce jars fit in there. So I'm going to turn the heat on to high, and I am going to wait for it to come up to a boil. Once it comes up to a boil, I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes. Well, our altitude requires that we increase the processing time on water bath canning for 5 minutes. So I'm going to process this for 25 minutes. If your altitude is 1,000 feet above sea level or less, you would do 20 minutes. So when it's finished, I will turn the heat off and remove the lid. I'll leave it just like that for 5 minutes before I take the jars all out of the water. Okay, one batch of salsa has already been through the canner, so that first recipe is completely jarred up and canned, ready for hopefully years of enjoyment. Now the second batch. This is the spicier jalapeno salsa that we blended into picante sauce. We are going to follow the exact same process that we did before to can this. Fill up the jar to a 1/2 inch to the top. Stir out the bubbles. Measure the headspace, 1/2 inch. Clean off the top. Add a brand new clean lid and a ring, finger tight. Then use the jar lifter to put it into the canner. Well, you guys, that canning project is officially done. 2 different kinds of salsas turned into picante sauce and canned so that my family and I can enjoy this for at least a couple of years. There are lots more tomatoes to be preserved, so keep a lookout for more videos with more ideas on what to do with a nice big harvest of tomatoes. You guys, I want to remind you that both recipes that we went over today are in the Ball Canning book. That is my favorite, the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. If you are interested in learning more about this book, remember it is in our Amazon shop. You guys, I really appreciate you stopping by the homestead today to share some time with me learning how to preserve 2 different kinds of salsa and then turn into picante sauce. If you're enjoying videos like this, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below, but also, more importantly, share these videos on your social media to get the word out that there are lots of ways to preserve food. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.